Hello, Karim.
Hello, hello. What's up? What's up? What's up, Miss
Wow.
McFadden? Fanny?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today.
Mm-hmm.
And as everyone knows, this is the Jerome McFadden Educational Center Strategic Disruptor Speaker Series. So
Mm-hmm.
this is one thing that I decided to do to increase our footprint within the global scope of how we talk about juvenile incarceration, the disparities in it, and all of the many factors that go into why there's so many disparities amongst Black and brown children, those with special needs, those with severe mental illnesses, and what we as a collective can do to mitigate that. And of course, we know that there are so many factors that go into it. 2 weeks ago, we talked to Mr. Stephen Waddy, who talked about the redlining and school districting and how those things come into play and how that relates to school to prison pipeline and juvenile incarceration. So now this week we have Mr. Karim Amin, who is, oh God, what isn't he? Father, this good Muslim brother.
Good Muslim brother. Try. I try.
So tell us about you, who you are, what you do.
So definitely, I've been involved in nonprofit and community work really most of my life. I started off, my parents are both very much involved in the community. My father is an imam, my mother is a teacher. Shout out to Hassan Amin. He actually is recovering from surgery. And my mom too, Sister Zakia Amin. They both have been veterans in this thing for a long time. My mother was actually one of the founders of one of the first charter schools in America, Haram in Philadelphia. Yes. Yeah, it's crazy, right? And then my father was a part of the Black Panthers. He used to sell like papers for them, and they were both very active, very like big activists. My mother was in at University of Pennsylvania, and she transferred to Temple and was teaching in Philly at South Philly High. And my father was also living in Philly, and they met and became Muslim together. And the reason why I talk about that story as my beginning is because my activism and my involvement in community really starts at home, literally. Yeah. So we started, I was probably 6 or 7. I remember we would have families that would come and stay with us at like different times. Sometimes whole families, sometimes single moms with their kids. And we always were like an open door. My Watts side of the family, my mother's side, we were always very welcoming and open and always really community oriented. So I would say that's where my grounding comes from. And then so we were always disruptors. It's always disruptors because we went from being like Black Panthers have been involved in a movement to now being Muslim, and really Islam is our foundation. Was very, people think it's antithetical, whatever you call it, against America, and so which we aren't. My father's a military veteran. My mother's always been teaching, always on the front lines, and that's really where I began. And so been involved in it since I was a kid. Started off with AmeriCorps, which I know we'll get into that, which unfortunately they're trying to strip away AmeriCorps now with this president.
Yeah, this president is he's interesting to say the least. So we just wanna, because I don't want my little petty YouTube channel to get shut on down. We're gonna use code words. We're gonna call him grapefruit.
Grapefruit. Okay, we'll talk about grapefruit. I'm gonna call him the red grapefruit. I wanted to know who we're talking about. But yeah, so that's really where I started, right, with AmeriCorps. And I remember doing AmeriCorps. I was at Towson at the time, and doing AmeriCorps was really life-changing for me because I saw my city from a different perspective. Being 19 when I was a part of it, just really seeing myself as a change agent. And and being involved in community. At the time, we were like cutting grass, and we actually helped to like drill holes for trees and all of that in Baltimore. So I learned a lot more about my city. And we were actually down at the Poe Homes. So I started off working in the projects, just cutting trees and like emptying apartments and doing all those different things. And even though it was a grind, for me, I appreciated it because I really felt like I was making an impact, you know, and a change. And then from there, worked in a couple different nonprofits, worked on some political campaigns, like with Sheila Dixon and some other folks. I've also done some work in with Islamic Relief in Haiti. And so that was a very, very significant change in my life, was going to Haiti, because it really was a culmination of like nonprofit work. And then also for me, it was a time where like I was able to find my identity as a Black man. I would say before that, I was always an other. Like I was always the Muslim guy, Muslim Black guy, or the Black guy, or the Black guy that went to college, or this. So I was always the other. That was like the first time I just felt human. And that was crazy. Like while I was there to help to serve in this NGO and responding to this incredible earthquake that took 250,000 souls, which we still, I don't think we properly honor. Yeah, it was 250,000 people.
That is crazy.
Crazy. From the earthquake itself and disease and everything, and to have that many people be impacted was incredible. And so I would say that's probably where like was the genesis of me really saying, okay, what can I do to really make systemic change? Right.
Yeah. And that's your story is kind of similar to my parents went into Panthers, but you know, my mom, she retired from Baltimore City Public Schools after doing 37 years, and she didn't teach at like Poly or Western. She taught in the trenches.
Yeah.
She was in the trenches. And even now at 41 years old, it's kids who are in their 50s and their 60s coming up, like recognizing me. And like Walmart, like, you look like my pre-kindergarten teacher, Miss Wilson. I'm like, oh, that's my mother. And it's amazing how we don't, shout out to teachers, by the way, because we don't give them enough credit.
Yes, shout out to teachers.
And, you know, that's how I got my start, watching my parents provide and having an open door policy for our house and looking out for other people's kids and just really making sure that we always knew how to give back. So I did not know your dad was in the Panthers. That makes a lot of sense. Going off about knowing like I know you, like like as the kids say, that tracks. But like I know you and I have a lot of conversations about a lot of different things. We talk about weed a lot, and we talk about the bane of my existence, reparations.
Oh yeah.
Telling me about my hatred for reparations. Here is why. Let me break it down. He already knows this, but let me break it down. So when we talk about reparations, most people want that 40 acres and a mule, right? Because that's all they know. They know the buzzword.
Okay.
Well, they check. Because we gave checks to the Japanese, we gave checks to the Jews. So why can't the Black people get checks? Native Americans got reservations. Why can't the foundational Black Americans get a check? Here's what I say to that. And I'm a very policy-oriented, systemic person. How do we know who's Black?
So that's a great question. And I get that a lot, especially.
Where do we get the money from? What
it's
is
not about the room.
Where are their income? Like, it's so many questions. So it's like, I get it. On one hand, I'm like, yes, run me my check. But on the other hand, I'm like, let's first take care of the people whose land we stole. Very clear. Let's be very clear. If we're going to make rights right, if we're going to make wrongs right, we need to, you know, give back to the people whose land we stole. We murdered with guns, chicken pox, smallpox, fire, you know, alcohol, ran them off their land, killed off all their buffalo, and burned their resources. Let's get them right. And then we can worry about the people who actually were brought in to do the hard labor so you guys could sit still. But then at the same time, what about Italians and Irish? Because they didn't reap the benefits until white people were like, oh, wait, everybody's trying to revolt and burn the plantations down. Let's get Italians and Irish a little bit so that they can get on our side. So that is my biggest issue of reparations, because there's so many layers to it. And I get it. We got to focus on us because we can't, you got to take it your own home first. So I get it completely, understand, but it's too many layers. And instead of us just talking about it, like, what's next?
So the first thing I want to say is that reparations does not start with a check. The check is probably step 70 or 80. I'm exaggerating a little bit down the line.
Is it exaggeration? Because I feel like it is 70 or 80. Like
I think it's really, it may not be. I'll say it's like 70 or 80. So I'm intentionally sitting right here. The picture that I have behind me is of CLR James. So CLR James was an incredible just humanitarian. He was an activist of Trinidad origin. I have Trini family through marriage. And I saw actually his space when I was down in Trinidad and went for Carnival a couple of years ago with my brother. Is actually his wife is Trini. And so the reason why I'm making that connection is I would say first, people have to research about the Black diaspora.
Absolutely.
It's not, you feel me?
Absolutely.
It's not just about Black foundational people, meaning people that who were impacted by segregation, redlining, all of those things you talked about in your previous pod. And then also, it also includes folk that have recently moved over, because reparations doesn't just start with a check. It starts with actually admitting the wrong that occurred to Black people. Admitting the wrong doesn't mean, oh, you know what? I did you wrong. Let me move on. Just like if you have a car accident, people are like, well, people have car accidents every single day. People do this every single day, or people go through things every single day. Okay, that's fine. However, it feels like whenever Black people bring up getting reparations, specifically here in the United States, even though it's across the diaspora, we're always the one. We either question ourselves, one, and or we have others who question our right to something when we were probably a part of one of the worst crimes in human history.
And I don't take away from that. I agree with that.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I know you do. Absolutely. And I hear what you're saying, but I think the first thing is just admitting the wrong. Okay. So I think that's what's happening. The other thing is that reparations it's admitting the wrong. Then when you go from there, trying to determine whose bloodline and this and that and the other, those Japanese people that were put into internment camps, they were just put into those camps, and then their families were benefited from that. I know I'm kind of simplifying it, but no one did that kind of research that I know about. You haven't had the same arguments. I'm sure at the time you did, but not those same arguments. In regards to the Irish and Italian that did come over later on, it's not about, again, a check. It's about admitting that this country was established on racism.
Yeah.
The founding fathers, the founding presidents were slave owners. They enslaved and they raped people. I mean, from George Washington to Thomas Jefferson, they did. Yeah. So it's first admitting to what occurred. Then I think there are, of course, a lot of other steps that come in between that. And I know there's a lot of controversy around the research here when our governor decided not to fund the reparations.
You want to talk about that? Because I have questions around that, because from what I heard, because I will follow Davon Love from Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle.
Incredible group. Definitely
Yeah.
love the Beautiful Struggle.
And they talked about it briefly. I can't remember everything that was discussed, but I do know that Governor Moore vetoed that bill.
Mhm.
But from what Governor Moore stated, he vetoed it because he believed, from my understanding, I might be wrong, that we've talked enough about it.
Mhm.
Now it's time for action. But that is my
Mhm.
understanding of why he vetoed the bill. So then my next question is, vetoing the bill because it's now time for action, how do you set up the action plan to make it happen?
So I would say one of the first things is that I'm kind of in the middle in regards to Governor Moore's decision. I do agree that we need to have action. Absolutely. I do think we kind of research out, we're surveyed out all the time. Somebody does surveys.
I'm tired of a survey. I'm tired of if I see one more white paper, I'm gonna scream.
Yeah, I'm sick of it. And I mean, these white papers, for those who don't know, they are like used to justify policy, they're used to justify research. But at the same time, we also know how much research impacts us. Okay. How much medical research has impacted us. We're still our not to veer off too much, but even how and I know we'll talk about cannabis a little bit later on, but even how we look at homeopathy, how we look at natural medicine was impacted by a report that was done in 1910.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I think doing those reports and doing that research is still critical because they impact policy and how we change things. But then I also understand that, like, constantly doing the white papers, constantly researching, we know what the issues are. But I also
have those meetings at work where there are a bunch of meetings and you leave out like, all right, we talked about
enough. So what are we going to do?
So what are we doing?
Right. So I feel like doing the research would have been critical. I think for an action plan for Maryland. We do have elements of it in the cannabis reparations bill that was passed a couple years ago after cannabis was legalized here. Recreational cannabis was legalized here in Maryland. They did a reparations commission where basically the taxes that come from recreational marijuana or cannabis sales is not just consumables, but it's also like creams and gummies, all those other different things. There's a reparations commission that was set up so that all of those taxes will go to the areas that were impacted by the war on drugs. So we have one in Baltimore, we have one in Baltimore County, we have them all around. And even though those commissions are still being set up, that's a good first step. But to me, that's very cursory because, again, reparations is bigger than a check. You have to admit to what the wrong is first that impacted the entire country. Reparations is actually not just good for Black people, it's good for white people. It's good for others because it's going to really dig up the reality of what's going on here in America. Robert Turner, who's the pastor at at Empowerment Temple.
Yeah, because I was actually about to ask you about your work with him because I've seen that he does a lot. He does like walks across certain parts of Maryland and, to bring awareness to reparations. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, he does a lot of incredible work around it. And in his book, he talks about how reparations isn't just a thing that's just for Black people and getting a check. It's something that's really going to help to heal America. Because if we don't deal with the stain and the harm that was created through the establishment of chattel slavery, we cannot properly heal our country. We can't. And so that's why, even though, you don't want to keep on researching, I think it is important to repair. It is important to do the research. Because guess what? These checks are not just owed by the government. These checks are owed by many of the insurance companies that we still pay uptenth amount of money for every year, and we don't even get the benefits. Some of these insurance companies that insured everything from medical insurance to our car insurance to our home insurance. We just had the impact of these insurance companies. We saw in the fires last year that occurred in California that burnt down entire communities in Altadena in California. And so we're still seeing these insurance companies that benefited from insuring Black bodies in the late 1800s and 1900s. These slave owners received reparations at the end of the Civil War, because what they said was, oh, we lost our property. Even though it was illegal to do that at the time, they still considered us property. And so people were paid for that. No one had an issue when the slave owners were paid.
Yeah.
People didn't have people that have issues when other folks are repaired every single day. But again, when Black people are saying, well, we've been through one of the worst, chattel slavery, the worst things in history. Are we owed something? Everyone gets angry. Well, who's going to pay? I'm going to pay. My dad was Irish. My father just came here from Pakistan in 1969. My mother just came from Ukraine in 1992. It's not about that. It's about the system itself and how it's impacted everyone. And it's not just about the government. It's insurance companies. It's hospitals. It's other wealthy people that have continued to build their wealth. Some of these old school, they call it old money here in America. Yeah. A lot of them built their wealth off of the backs of enslaved people. So it's just not the government. It's a lot of businesses.
And then I know one of my biggest things is that because of the atrocities that the Native Americans and the indigenous people have suffered, continue to suffer, are going through a reawakening. In my opinion, ICE is nothing but the Trail of Tears, but that's a whole other conversation.
Oh my gosh, they're terrible.
That's a whole other conversation. I just want the proper respect of those people, because if it wasn't for their deaths, their murders, we would not be talking about reparations anyway, because we wouldn't be here. So I just want that.
I agree totally. I agree totally.
Yeah. I just want to bring everybody into the conversation.
I agree. I think everyone has to be brought into the conversation, but I think that I have to start from my perspective, which is a Black perspective.
Taking care of your own house first. I get it.
Taking care of my own house first. And then oftentimes, as we know, you start cleaning out your house.
Yeah.
You start to discover, oh gosh, it's some dirt over here. It's some trash over here. It's some other stuff going over there. So I think we need to start looking at it, not from the perspective of just a check, but looking at what are these policies that have still continue to impact us today. What I was talking about earlier was in 1910, the Flexner Report. And the Flexner Report was really about medical education. And what it did was it consolidated medical schools, but it also looked at holistic, homeopathic medicine, also other things like electroshock, which should have been gone, but it looked at all the natural medicines that we utilize, and they said that it's bad and it's wrong. And so now we're just rediscovering doulas. We're just rediscovering the benefits of cannabis. We're just rediscovering these things. And so I think everyone needs to be a part of this conversation, because the things that need to be repaired are beyond just enslavement. It was the policies that came out of that continue to impact our communities to this day.
And I'm glad you said that, because, my platform is all about the reduction of disparities, particularly racial and ethnic, social and economic status, and special needs in juvenile incarceration. And one of the things that I don't think you came to the first screening we did, but we did a screening of 13th by Ava DuVernay.
Yes.
And talking about policies and having youth understand why they need to read the United States Constitution. having them actually sit down and say, oh my gosh, I did not know this, and started to connect the dots was so, it was a beautiful moment, but it was also disheartening. As it's like, you learn all this stuff in school, but you like, oh, this is just school. You don't take it with you. But the 13th Amendment was created to free the slaves and then enslave us again.
Yep.
Trespassing was not a thing. Loitering was not a thing. Soliciting was not a thing until we were freed. And then it goes back to creating the policies to enslave again. And unfortunately, anyone who is not a white Anglo-Saxon male got caught up in all of that.
Yep.
And as you said, how it pertains to today. So how do you see, you talked about the Cannabis Reparations Commission, right? There are still Black children getting locked up for weed. Even though cannabis is recreational. You gotta be 21 to smoke it. Y'all gotta be 21 to smoke it.
Gotta be 21 to smoke it.
Gotta be 21 to smoke it. But there are still people getting arrested. They may not be getting locked up, but they still getting arrested and citations for something that is illegal, because the policy is you have to purchase it from a licensed dispensary. You have to own a licensed dispensary. So then, like, you had the kids who are used to hustling on the corner, making the fast money and spending it, not understanding how to make it a lucrative business legally, getting caught up. So what are your thoughts on all of that?
That is a great question. Before I do that, I'm turning my light on because it's getting dark. So I'll give you 1 second. All right, cool. So yes, edit that out. But yeah, so I was just listening to 16.
Oh, we don't do no edits. We don't do no edits here.
Everybody saw me turn on the light. It's cool.
And I saw that when preseason started. Who did we play?
We played the Colts and we beat them. Yeah, we look good. You already know those Raiders.
24, something like that.
Yep. Yeah, we got to get with them. Yes.
We look real good. Shout out to the Ravens. And since 1996, since we first came, and we're not going to talk about how the other team left on the Mayflower in the middle of the night, but we're not going to do that. We're going to talk about
the Mayflower. They just keep on popping up for us, yo. From the slavery to them stealing our daggone team, but we got our team. We got the Ravens. Y'all already know what it's about.
Anyway,
so I was just listening to 16 by Andre 3000. I'm not going to say the lines perfectly, but he said, you told me that what I was doing, it was a sin for me to win, but isn't it a sin for you to not like teach me how to win? And I was listening to that line and I'm like, yo, that's crazy. Because we telling these kids it's a sin for how you want to win. But then we compact the sin because we don't teach them how to win. And I think the cannabis market right now is a prime example of that, right? We tell them, all right, don't smoke for years. It's illegal, you get locked up, this and that and the other. Now it is legal, okay, there's some health benefits, but we don't educate them in school about the benefits of cannabis, the different ways to ingest it, because smoking, period, and I'm an advocate for it, but smoking, period, can damage your lungs. It can damage, especially young lungs that are still developing. So you need to understand what you're doing. You got to understand the spiritual connection of cannabis. But we've taken spirituality out of everything. So now even talking about spirituality, unless it's in this white Anglo-Saxon Christian moniker.
Or it has to be in the Abrahamic religion.
Or Abrahamic religion, because even in Islam, we have people that teach certain things, or Judaism, this is wrong and sinful. We have to educate our youth on how to consume cannabis. A group I'm a part of, Maryland Cannabis Equity Collective, we try to do that. And we've worked with our different commissions that we have here. We actually do have a really, really good, well, I would say they're a good commission that's over reparations and equity here in our state, and they try to push to educate people, but we have to do a different job of educating youth on how you should consume, when you can consume. It's not alcohol. It's a very different kind of thing. And so first, I think it's like education. And then also we around education, not around just consumption, but also the law. Yeah. I was an educator for over 10 years in Baltimore City Public Schools. And I consumed them, but sometimes I would have my students that would come to class and their eyes would be so red and they're so out of it, they couldn't learn, because a lot of them are mixing the natural marijuana with other things, or they're on multiple drugs. They're on Percocets, Adderall, and they're smoking weed. Or they're mixing it in fentanyl even in some of the weed that's out there. It's insane. Yeah. And so you have a lot of that's happening. So I think education is critical to what we're doing. And it can't just be in a public school. You got to educate at home. You got to educate yourselves. And then again, around the Constitution and the law, right? We got to teach them about the law. And I think when you take those things out of school and you take those out of the consciousness, and we just say, go read the Constitution, that's important. But if you're not presenting it to youth in a way that they can consume it, they're not going to listen. I mean, we all are there. I mean, they're not going to listen. I'm 15, 16. You want me to read that? But give it to me in a way where I can learn. But when your people do stuff like shut down education system, they shut down.
Come on, grapefruit.
Come on, grapefruit. Want to shut down a corporation for public broadcasting? It's like now you're shutting down education.
But that's why we're here. But that is one of the reasons why I decided to do this. And it's not because, I just like running my mouth because I hate podcasts. You and I've had that conversation.
Yeah, I know.
But something needs to be done. And you said it best. It has to be the educational piece. So if I'm a child, I'm 15, 16 years old. I see that my father smokes weed because it's legal. He went to the dispensary. He got it. I don't understand the law around it. So when I'm still getting arrested for underage marijuana consumption, that's still a ding on my record.
Yeah.
And then guess who's the one getting the most dings? The Black and brown babies. And to your point about the kids mixing the drugs, studies have shown, and here we go on to research, but studies have shown that drug use is a risk factor for delinquent behavior. Children do not commit crimes outside of groups and all those other risk factors. No quote unquote good child wakes up and says, you know what, I'm gonna rob a bank. No, it's done because of certain risk factors. Drug use is one, group dynamics is another, home life, et cetera, and the fact that their little brains are still mush, their frontal lobe is all mush. Like no matter how legal something is, I think they also need to understand that legality is only as good as the legislation behind it.
Absolutely.
It's only as good as the legislation behind it. And understanding, like you said, how to consume it. Because if you are a child, and then like I did some research on sexual assaults among teens, majority of that happens when they consume a drug. So it's like, how do we get our youth, because that is a way to reduce the disparities. I'm all about reduction disparities. How do we get them to understand that just because this thing is now legal, because slavery was legal too, that we need to, I don't even know how to say it, but they just need to watch what they do, because it is now the system, the 13th Amendment, the system is literally set up to enslave them again. So your thoughts on that, and then how we tie that into reparations. How do we make?
That's a good point. Great question. So the first thing I would say is it starts with personal accountability. Starts in the home. If you are consuming, make sure that you are teaching your children about it. I don't know how many times I've been taught, and again, I taught for a while. I taught elementary, I've taught high school. I don't know how many times I've had kids that are 6 to 7 years old coming in, literally smelling like an eighth of exotic. And it's like, I know the kid isn't consuming. Some of them do consume at a young age, but I know the kids aren't consuming, but they're around their parents that are smoking and not educating them, or they're displaying dangerous behaviors around them. And so I think educating them, being responsible, just like there are people that do consume alcohol and other things, but they don't necessarily go to the table and give all their kids beers and be like, hey, we're all here together, or we're going to all have wine, together.
Yeah.
If there's a delineation. So I think that personal accountability has to be there. It's okay to have a friendly relationship with your children, but to want to be your children's peer, I don't like to say your kids can't be your friend, because some people do have friendly relationship with their kids.
Sharice ain't my friend, and so she is a grown woman with her own child.
That's what I'm saying. That's when you become friends. And even now, I'm 47 years old. I'm not going to say I'm my parents' friend, but we have a friendly relationship because I'm now an adult. So I think making those delineations is important as well. And that personal responsibility and accountability is still critical, right? Mm-hmm. Then I think, honestly, I'm going to say some people may not agree with it. Our religious institutions, our institutions outside of school have to do a better job of educating. Absolutely. Don't just go, you feel me? Like, just don't.
They preach abstinence on everything, and that is not reality.
It's not.
It is not reality.
You have the same people.
Why these youth aren't going to these institutions where they are able to get a strong foundation so that they have some sort of moral compass. Because right now, their brains are mush, their friends' brain is mush, and they eat each other's moral compass.
Yeah. And everybody's mushy.
Yeah.
Everybody's, and it's this hypersensitivity that we have on now, where I'm only going to talk to my friends, or I'm not going to talk to this person about this, or I can't trust them with that. It's like, we got to start at home, but then also we got to educate in these institutions. Hit them where it is. Okay, listen, this is what our religion says on it from tradition, but we know these things are happening. Here's how I want to educate you. Here are the benefits. Here are the things that it could do to hurt you. Okay. Yeah. And I think being real in these institutions, attacking these things head on, as opposed to abstinence for everything, which isn't real. Because we know religious institutions a lot of times are filled with people that were sinners.
Yes.
And that still are active sinners. Yes. So God wants you to be forgiven, so you can't be a bunch of active sinners and everyone's saying, okay, abstain. And it's like, okay, cool. But I got a black in my car right now that I'm gonna spark, and I'm gonna listen to this gospel music when I'm leaving, right? Like it's so, it's crazy. You know what I mean? The duality is
cancel before I even start. You be canceled before I even get going. These are not the views of the JMEC.
Nah, it's Karim. You got me on here. It's gonna be real. Let's be real, because if we want to make change, let's really deal with what's going on. Let's stop beating around the bush with everything.
I agree wholeheartedly.
I appreciate that.
We got to be out in these streets and really understand that. And it's more than just uplifting the youth. Like, I hate that.
Oh God.
It's so many things I hate. But it's literally about giving them. It's this post that I have on my Instagram page. That it says the tree is only as strong as the root.
Mm-hmm.
If we are messed up as the trunk, because our forefathers are they're the roots. The roots are damaged. The trunk is a result of the roots. We're damaged. And then we expect these branches to be like, what's wrong with the kids? Us.
Yeah.
It's us.
Yes.
It's literally us.
Yeah. That's that accountability. It's us. We gotta accept what we've done, where we've been at, where we've come from, because we've made progress. but where we're at, like you said, we can't expect for them to flower and to be so wonderful when we have our own, when they're coming from flawed people. So we gotta, I think, be accountable. We gotta educate them, and then also go to where they're at. Like you say, you hate podcasting, but podcasting right now is where people are actually able to express their voices, because a lot of other places are controlled by sponsorships and other sound bites and clickbait and all of that. So that's why I love these types of platforms that can really give us the opportunity to really share what the truth is, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I know that it is controversial. I know there's people that's going to say, well, I don't want to talk about consumption of weed while I'm at church, or I'm at the mosque, or I'm at the temple. I would say, well, where should you talk about it at? I mean, because that's where you're coming to get advice. That's where you're coming to get counsel. That's where you're coming to try to improve as a man or a woman and as people, right?
Yeah.
So I think that needs to happen as well. And that whole just saying no to drugs is just a ridiculous statement.
Bullshit. And we know it. We're just going to call it what it is. It's bullshit. Because people are going to do what they want to do.
Yeah, that's true. And those same people giving those messages, we're bringing drugs into our community as that we're saying don't do drugs.
Yeah.
So
and that's a whole other TED talk. That's a whole
other thing. So, but getting to the youth, again, I think working with them, they just want honesty. Like I worked, I taught in the school system, and then I also got a chance to teach at what's called Maya Angelou and Laurel. Shout out to the staff there. And it was an old Oak Hill, and they incarcerated a lot of youth from the DC area. And what I learned so much, that actually was one of my favorite assignments as an educator, was being in that place. It really was. I felt like I had the most impact, but I learned so much, because here you had these youth that were accused of crimes of all ranges, from absconding from school to murder, but they still babies.
Yeah,
that's the wild part, and it's hard to describe it to someone that's like, well, they're murder. I'm like, yo, they're actually still kids.
They're still kids.
There's they still thought like kids, acted like kids. They would dance around like, they had go-go, so they would stop, they would beat their feet all day. Like they were, shout out to my DC fam, but like they were still kids, because they still want to be educated, they still want to get taken care of, but you got to do it in a way that they can receive it. And it's not just keeping it real and scared straight. It's also not abstaining. It's being real and having these very real conversations.
Oh my God. So we want to wrap it up soon, because you're not only an hour, but these conversations could go on and on and on. But you say that, and I had the pleasure of going to the Rhode Island training school last year. And one of my goodest, bestest friends, John Scott, he is like I don't know what he does there, but he was able to create a farm there. And he told me one day, he said, Shannon, just watching the kids, because that's what he calls them, kids.
They're kids.
Going outside and taking care of the goats and the ducks. He said, I can talk to them so much more because their defenses are down. It's nothing like watching a kid who shot somebody make sure that the chicken gets his food. Like they had a memorial service for one of the chickens that died of cancer. Like the kids were heartbroken.
Wow.
But you won't know that they don't. If no one's teaching them empathy, how are they going to have it for everybody else?
Say it again. Say it again.
Like
you gotta learn it.
Yeah.
And you gotta get those basics. And we also can't assume that everyone started at the same place. Some of us are starting here, some of us are starting there. Some of us had education but had abusive households. Some people had extremely healthy households, but not a lot of education and exposure. So you gotta kind of, I know we have IEPs that are just for special ed. No, every kid needs an IEP.
Absolutely.
Because everyone has a different and unique experience that needs to be addressed. Even though we have basic stuff we have to learn in school, you gotta address those kids' individual experiences. Every kid isn't from a fatherless home.
Right.
Every kid didn't just get it out the mud.
Because guess what? We weren't from fatherless homes. Jerome
No,
closets and accounted for every day.
Every day. You know, so I mean, in my, you know, I know I grew up with my father in my home, very present, very much a part of my life. But still, in those houses, people make different decisions.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you're from a broken home because you're a broken person.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that. It just means that that's a space that you're in your life. And how do we, like you were saying, teach kids empathy, teach them how to care for each other, teach them how to responsibly consume when it's legal, teach them these different things and do it over and over and over again. We can't just say, I gave you this message, I came here and I gave you all these resources in these book bags, I had a youth fair, okay, we're done. I'm coming for next. Because we do that. We have these resource fairs, we do all of these wonderful things, we pat each other on our backs, we feel good, or we take a kid to a movie, and then we say, we did social and emotional learning. Because I got him some sneakers and I took him to go see a Marvel movie, which I love Marvel.
Oh, and listen.
We gotta have consistent messaging. We have to consistently talk with them and meet them where they're at. And then take that same empathy that they had when they was trying to pass through the system and apply to the streets.
Yeah.
We got to take what we're learning positively and put it into the streets. Social say it's a program. That's why you in juvie. And then when you get to the streets, it's thrown out the window. No, take those farming skills, bring them back to the hood.
And address the food deserts.
What?
Because food impacts behavior. Address the food deserts. So that way, instead of you trying to steal from someone so you can feed your family, you got stuff in your backyard that you can just pluck and eat.
That's way fresher. Impacts how you think, because we know the food that we're getting is impacting, like you just said, how the kids are thinking. It also impacts their health. It impacts asthma. It impacts cancer. It impacts all those different things.
Mental illness.
Say it again.
Because there are homeopathic diets that if a person has severe mental illness, if you remove a lot of the carcinogens and chemicals that are in the food, it helps increase their brain functionality and their brain's ability to bounce back. And on that note, it is 8:34, my good brother. We have been on this call for almost an hour. I want to thank you so much for this conversation.
Yes.
How can people follow you, reach out to you, talk to you?
Yes. So I'm on LinkedIn, Karim Amin, Karim R. Amin. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. And I'm also there, Kareem Skin or Karim R. Amin as well. You can follow me there. And just hit me up. You want to continue this conversation?
Absolutely. I'm gonna somebody in to do this. And thank you. You have, I think we met, what was it, 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And you have been consistent in making sure that the tough conversations happen, the dirty work happens, the work that isn't glamorized by social media, and actually doing the steps to see, real change, especially in our kids. So you are much appreciated. You are loved.
Thank you.
And I thank you so much. And again, this is Shannon from the Jerome McFadden Educational Center. Thank you. Leave a comment. Tell me how you think about, how everything is going, and just, try to do some good in the world. All right, everyone, have a good night.
Right. Have a good night.